You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Tools are getting better, output is getting worse. Both are true.
Yeah, it really is the great paradox right now, isn't
It
it?
absolutely is. Welcome to Vocal Technologist. I'm so glad you're here with us. We are going to have a proper look at a massive stack of design, tech, and product notes to really nut out what happens when artificial intelligence takes over the execution of a project, leaving the humans in the room to figure out the actual why.
Right, because that's the bit that's getting lost, the why.
Exactly. And I reckon it's time we untangle the real impact of these tools, completely minus the hype, just two mates at the pub trying to make sense of it all.
I love that, because it is a massive contradiction, right? But it's exactly what we're seeing across the board. The barrier to making something has basically hit zero.
Yeah.
Like, you can prompt an entire application into existence while you drink your morning coffee.
Yeah.
But the barrier to making something good, that might actually be getting higher.
Because we're outsourcing the critical thinking.
Exactly, we're getting lazy.
Well, I want to ground this immediately in this brilliant experiment I was reading about. A UX practitioner decided to test this exact theory. They took a real, highly complex portal review and just handed it over to a couple of AI models. Specifically, they used Claude and ChatGPT.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and they fed both models the exact same brief, all the user research, all the raw analytics data.
Oh, man. The kind of dense, messy raw material that a human designer would normally spend days poring over, right? Like, just trying to find the actual friction points for the user.
Precisely. And their result was fascinating. Like, both models completely hallucinated.
Really? They just made things up?
Yeah, they just invented completely irrelevant issues that did not exist in the data. Now, to be fair to the technology, Claude managed to spit out a single, very coherent document.
I bet it looked great.
Oh, it read beautifully. The formatting was impeccable, bullet points, bold text, the works. But the actual UX critique was fundamentally flawed.
Which is, I mean, that's the core danger of where we are right now. The output looks incredibly competent. It mimics the cadence of expertise without possessing any actual understanding.
Yes. The analogy that helped it click for me is using AI for a UX review is kind of like asking a parrot to critique a novel.
Oh, that's good.
Right. The parrot knows all the words. It can recite the sentences back to you flawlessly with perfect pronunciation, but has absolutely no idea what those words actually feel like to read.
Yeah, it doesn't understand the emotional weight of a chapter ending.
Or the frustration of a confusing paragraph. It's just predicting the next likely token.
Spot on. And that lack of feeling, that's exactly what connects to this growing conversation about product sense.
Right. Product sense.
Yeah, as AI makes the actual execution, like the coding, the pushing of pixels, the generating of layouts, as that becomes incredibly cheap and instant, the premium human skill shifts entirely. Deciding what to build becomes infinitely more valuable than knowing how to build it.
I hear the term product sense thrown around heaps, but it often sounds like, I don't know, a hollow corporate buzzword. How does it actually function in reality?
Well, true product sense is the ability to reliably make correct product decisions, especially when you're operating in highly ambiguous situations where the data doesn't give you a clear answer.
When you're flying blind, basically.
Exactly. And the catch is, you cannot build it just by reading product critiques or watching tutorials. Developing product sense requires going through the full, painful cycle of creation. You have to understand a problem, make a difficult call, implement the solution, and then actually sit there and measure the outcomes.
You need to see the real-world consequences of your decisions. You have to feel the sting when you get it wrong and, figure out exactly why you got it wrong.
Yes. The friction is the point.
Yeah.
There's this amazing comparison to be made with traditional art schools here. Like, if you visit an art school studio, you see students engaged in this agonizing, deliberate practice.
Just drawing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, they're painting the exact same bowl of fruit for weeks.
Yeah.
And they aren't doing it to get a perfect picture of an apple. They're training their eye, layer by layer.
Right.
They're learning to deconstruct light, shadow, form, color, temperature. That slow, frustrating process of making 1,000 micro decisions is what builds actual taste.
Okay, so if you're a junior designer right now and you bypass that slow wireframing stage by just typing a prompt into an AI tool, and getting a finished app interface in 10 seconds, you're short-circuiting your own learning process.
You are robbing yourself of the chance to build taste.
You get the output, but you don't get the underlying judgment.
Exactly. And the fear is that we're going to see an entire generation of practitioners who can generate a slick interface, but have absolutely no foundational understanding of why it fails when a real human tries to navigate it.
But I mean, we can't just pretend these tools don't exist. Like, refusing to use AI isn't a viable career strategy anymore. So what's the actual fix here?
The fix is choosing where you apply the automation. You need to get closer to the metal.
Meaning you avoid those highly abstracted, no-code platforms that just spit out a finished product, like Lovable and those kinds of tools.
Right. Tools that build everything for you with one click are incredible if you're a non-technical founder who just needs a prototype fast. But if you want to upskill and retain your product sense, you should be building side projects using tools like Claude Code, Codex, or Cursor.
Where you can actually see what's happening.
Yeah, you learn through an iterative back and forth. You use the AI as a sparring partner. You ask it to explain the architecture it's suggesting. You build with it, engaging in the logic rather than having it built for you.
That makes total sense. It forces you to stay in the driver's seat. But look, that brings up a glaring issue for me. If we can't fully trust AI to conduct a basic UX review without hallucinating, how on earth are we trusting it with the serious stuff, like the actual core plumbing of the internet?
Well, that is where we have to look at what Figma's security team is doing. They're tackling this exact trust deficit, and they're doing some of the most interesting work in the industry right now.
Okay, tell me more.
So they've built these autonomous AI agents to guard code generation, review pull requests, and audit their massive monorepo.
Let me just define that quickly for you if you haven't heard the term. A monorepo is basically one giant centralized code base where all the code for an entire company lives together, right?
Spot on.
Having thousands of developers pushing code into one massive bucket sounds like an absolute security nightmare.
It's a massive surface area for vulnerabilities. So Figma set up these AI agents, all governed by one shared security policy, to constantly scan for threats. But the mechanical detail, the thing that made this actually work in practice, is that they strictly prioritize precision over recall.
Okay, walk me through the mechanics of that. What is the actual difference between precision and recall in this context?
Well, in software security, recall means finding every single potential bug. You design the system to cast the widest possible net.
Right.
But the mathematical problem with casting a massive net is you catch an enormous amount of garbage. You get heaps of false positives.
Oh, and if the system cries wolf 10 times a day, developers are just going to set up an email filter to send the alert straight to the trash.
Exactly. They despise false positives.
Yeah.
If the AI flags 100 pieces of code and 90 of them are perfectly fine, the engineering team is going to think the AI is a bit ordinary and just ignore it entirely. It becomes useless.
Yeah, they'd assume it's just having a land.
Right. So Figma realized that raw detection wasn't the goal. Human trust was the most important metric. So they mathematically tuned the model so it had to hit an 80% precision rate.
Meaning that out of every 10 alerts the AI flagged, at least 8 had to be genuine critical threats. It had to be right 80% of the time, even if it meant missing a few minor bugs along the way.
Yes. They accepted a lower overall catch rate just to build enough trust that the engineering team would actually read the agent's comments. And once that trust was established, it created this incredible feedback loop.
Oh, I see.
The AI spots a vulnerability, humans verify it, and if it is a false positive, they dismiss it. That human dismissal trains the model's underlying logic to be even more precise on the next scan.
I love that. The human is still the final arbiter of truth. But when an AI does hallucinate in a corporate setting, like when it gets things wildly wrong and confidently invents a fake vulnerability, whose fault is that? Is the model's neural network just broken?
Here is the fascinating part that most people completely misunderstand. Hallucinations usually aren't a model problem at all. They're an information architecture problem.
Wait, I'm going to need you to explain that because I am genuinely surprised. The big secret to fixing advanced futuristic AI is just old school, boring file organization.
That is exactly it. AI systems, specifically the ones using RAG or retrieval augmented generation, they're essentially massive, incredibly fast retrieval engines. When you ask them a question, they search a database and surface the best matched text to build their answer. So if a company feeds that database mislabeled, unstructured, or contradictory corporate documents, the AI doesn't know any better. It just confidently stitches that mess together at scale.
Oh, this makes perfect sense when you look at that Air Canada chatbot disaster. Their customer service AI hallucinated a fake bereavement fare policy and promised a customer a refund they weren't actually entitled to.
Yeah, and the court held the airline legally liable for what the bot promised. But the critical detail is that the AI didn't just invent the fake policy out of thin air to be malicious.
Right.
It got confused by poorly structured, conflicting PDF documents buried in Air Canada's own internal knowledge base. Humans can read a contradictory document and realize, oh, this paragraph is outdated. AI does not tolerate ambiguity. It just confidently gives you the wrong answer based on bad data.
That is wild. The tech world is spending billions of dollars training newer, faster models, and the actual fix for enterprise AI is just sitting down, sorting your folders properly, and tagging your documents.
Pretty much.
Well, if you're keen on picking apart the tech world like this with us, make sure you subscribe. We love untangling this stuff.
You really do.
So Figma and Air Canada show us what happens when an AI is dealing with internal owned data. But what happens when an AI model doesn't have a neat corporate monorepo? What happens when it just starts taking things from the open web without asking?
Well, you get a massive systemic pushback. The era of scrape everything and apologize later is rapidly closing. The internet is getting incredibly defensive, and we're seeing it play out both legally and technically.
Let's look at the legal side first because it's getting really messy. Take Elmer Safler, the Filipino artist behind that viral running away balloon comic. A meme generator company scraped his deeply personal artwork, fed it into their AI, and turned it into a subscription-based ad template for other businesses to use.
Ouch.
Yeah. No permission, no compensation. He's currently suing them. And then you've got Hollywood heavyweights like Clooney and Hanks backing this new human consent standard to control their likeness online. OpenAI even had to pause a trademark dispute over the IO branding.
And legal experts are watching this closely because the precedent actually favors the artist. AI companies love to claim that scraping falls under fair use, but taking a copyrighted piece of art and turning it into a commercial advertising product severely undercuts that defense.
But the legal system is notoriously slow. You can't wait 3 years for a court case every time a bot steals your portfolio, which is why I'm fascinated by the technical retaliation we're seeing. People are fighting code with code. Let's talk about Shield Font.
Oh, Shield Font is one of the most brilliant examples of this defensive web. It's an open-source typeface designed specifically to poison the training data of AI web scrapers.
Okay, break down the mechanics of how a font actually poisons data. Because to a human reading a website using Shield Font, it looks completely normal, right? The text reads perfectly.
Yeah, it exploits how computers render text versus how they store it. When you type the letter A, your computer stores it as a specific Unicode value, let's say U plus 0001. What Shield Font does is scramble that underlying mapping. It creates a custom font file where the visual drawing of the letter A is tied to a completely random garbage Unicode character.
Ah, so the human looking at the screen sees an A because the font draws an A. But the web scraper isn't looking at the screen. It's reading the raw HTML DOM.
Exactly. The scraper ingests the raw code, pulls the scrambled Unicode, and feeds absolute gibberish into its multi-million-dollar training dataset. It completely breaks the semantic meaning for the bot while leaving the human experience completely intact.
Look, I have to push back here because I'm highly skeptical of this working long term. Couldn't OpenAI or Google just update their scrapers to take a screenshot of the page and run standard optical character recognition? Like, OCR reads the pixels, not the code. A dodgy little web font isn't going to stop OCR.
You're entirely correct that OCR bypasses Shield Font. But it's not about making scraping technically impossible. It's about bankrupting the scrape.
Oh, it's about the economics.
Yes. Running standard DOM scraping on raw HTML text costs fractions of a cent per 1,000 pages. It is incredibly cheap. Running image-based OCR requires spinning up GPU compute for every single web page. If you have to do that across billions of URLs, the unit economics of web scraping completely collapse. It introduces massive financial friction.
Okay, you've convinced me. Make it too expensive for them to steal. But if the web is turning into this hostile battleground of bots scraping bots and poisoned data, how do human designers actually build spaces that people want to visit?
They do it by abandoning the sterile aesthetic we've been stuck with for the last 10 years. The era of minimalism is dead.
Oh, good riddance to corporate Memphis. I am so deeply tired of those flat, pastel, disproportionate vector people on every tech startup's homepage. It all looks like an insurance brochure.
Right. Minimalism served a purpose when we were all transitioning to mobile screens. It taught designers structure and hierarchy, but it curdled into this forgettable sameness. What we're seeing now is a bifurcation of the internet. The web is splitting into two distinct halves, the silent web and the experiential web.
Let's define the silent web first.
The silent web is purely structured, boring data. No heavy visuals, no fancy animations, no CSS styling. It's optimized entirely for APIs and AI agents to read, retrieve, and process instantly. When you ask your AI assistant to book a flight, it interacts with the silent web.
Right. So if the agents are handling all the mundane tasks in the background, the only reason a human would ever actively open a browser and visit a URL is for the experiential web.
Exactly. The experiential web is optimized for human memory, brand distinctiveness, and raw emotion. We are seeing a return to depth and texture, pneumorphism, brutalism, interfaces that actually feel like something physical. If you want humans to visit your site, you have to be wildly entertaining or deeply emotional.
But that pressure to be experiential can easily curdle into outright manipulation. If you need to force users to care, you start weaponizing emotion.
Which brings us straight to the absolute masters of behavioral manipulation, Duolingo. I was looking at how they built their design system, and a critic aptly called it the architecture of guilt. Oh, it's a perfect description. They don't just reward you for doing well, they meticulously engineer the interface to ensure you feel psychological distress if you try to leave.
They completely weaponize loss aversion. The streak system is terrifyingly effective. You see people who will literally interrupt a wedding just to do a 3-minute language drill because they're terrified of losing a 500-day streak.
Oh, yeah.
And they pair that with an emotionally responsive owl mascot that actually cries or looks bruised if you ignore your push notifications. They are manufacturing anxiety to drive user retention.
And the really clever part is how they pair that anxiety with engineered escape hatches, like the streak freeze. They know human motivation naturally wanes, and you will inevitably miss a day. If you lose a 500-day streak, you'll probably delete the app out of despair.
Right.
They let you buy a freeze to protect it. They give you a way to recover without abandoning the habit entirely. It's an absolute masterclass in behavioral design. But it skirts a very dark ethical line between persuasion and coercion.
Yeah, contrast that kind of dark pattern emotional design with interfaces that actually empower people. There was a fantastic piece written by a blind author detailing how they navigate the modern web and how they view AI as a tool for independence.
Yes, and they made a really crucial distinction between using AI as augmentation versus using AI as compensation.
Right. They use Meta Ray-Bans to identify physical objects, and they use Claude to summarize deeply inaccessible, poorly coded PDF documents. It gives them massive independence.
But their core argument was sharp. They
Yeah.
shouldn't have to rely on AI to compensate for bad human design.
Exactly. If a developer just built the website with proper accessibility standards from the ground up, the user wouldn't need to burn API credits just to read a menu.
Because relying on AI for accessibility means you're at the mercy of hallucination rates. If an AI hallucinates the layout of a banking portal, the consequences for that user are severe. When a human designs an accessible interface intentionally, it's deterministic and reliable. Look at interactive retail, like the Coach Playground. It feels spontaneous to the user, but behind the scenes, it requires Formula One pit stop precision.
And that intentionality translates to how we're designing the actual interfaces and hardware moving forward. If the web is splitting, the software we use to access it is changing too. Let's look at the hardware extremes first. You've got Apple putting out these really conservative Apple Watch 12 updates, and then these wild rumors of a radical edge-to-edge glass iPhone 20.
And Jony Ive's rumored OpenAI HomePad device. Plus, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, you have the counterculture $299 light phone flip, which deliberately ditches AI and social media for pure intentionality.
Yeah, it's wild. And the micro updates in the UI are just as fascinating. Meta is moving its AI into Threads DMs because people felt too awkward chatting with bots in public. And then there's Amazon's Lighthouse project.
This is a huge shift in how we discover content. Amazon is overhauling the Prime Video home screen. Instead of static editorial grids curated by humans, they're moving to entirely AI-generated, personalized interfaces.
But there's a massive risk there. When you shift from a static grid to an algorithmic black box, how do you know you aren't just being manipulated? If Amazon wants to push their own original movie, the AI can just dynamically generate a personalized reason for you to watch it, burying independent films. The interface becomes a personalized persuasion machine.
That is the danger of the experiential web. The personalization is so good it borders on deceptive, which ties into the second UI trend, the softening of the interface. We're seeing companies desperately trying to make these highly persuasive AI tools feel less threatening.
Yes. WhatsApp is testing these significantly rounder, softer chat bubbles on their iOS builds. They're removing the harsh outlines. And McPaw designed their new AI assistant, Eenie, not as a sterile text box, but as a warm, pink, circular character with minimal features.
It's entirely psychological. Sharp edges and stark terminal windows feel like complex machinery. Soft, organic shapes feel safe and approachable. They're using rounded corners as a psychological pacifier to make the machine feel less mechanical. Oh, and Apple's iOS 27 Siri, getting contextual awareness across all devices, is pushing this even further.
So if the interface is getting softer and AI is generating layouts dynamically for every user, how do human designers actually communicate what needs to be built? Is the old pipeline of a designer handing a static Figma file to a developer totally dead?
It is rapidly evolving into something called UX context design. Instead of spending hours polishing a static screen for a human developer to interpret, designers are starting to encode their core research, their brand rules, and their interaction standards into machine-readable text files. Think of a markdown file called ux.md.
I want to make sure I understand this. A markdown file is just a plain text document. So instead of drawing the button, you're writing the instructions for how the button should behave.
Exactly. You're basically writing the master prompt for the AI agent that will eventually write the code. You are curating the context. You explicitly define the psychological models of your users, the accessibility requirements, the exact hex codes for your brand colors.
Wow.
That ux.md file lives right inside the code base. Every single time an AI coding tool touches the project, it's forced to read that file first. It grounds the AI so it doesn't hallucinate a completely inappropriate design.
We are moving completely away from visual handoffs to real-time collaboration with agents. It's huge.
It changes everything about the workflow.
Let's pull all these threads together. We are looking at a space where AI can execute almost everything. It can write the underlying code. It can generate the video with models like FLUX3. It can organize the personalized layout. It can even scrape the data to populate it. But the one thing it cannot supply is the taste. It can't supply the product sense, the ethics to avoid manipulative guilt architectures, or the judgment to know when an interface should be silent versus when it should be experiential.
The machine can build a house faster than ever, and it can lay the bricks perfectly, but it still doesn't know where to put the windows to catch the morning light. That architectural judgment still belongs entirely to the human holding the mouse.
Which leaves us with a rather profound reality. If AI agents get incredibly good at navigating the silent web on our behalf, and generative tools handle the visual execution of the experiential web, the only thing you actually own in the future is your taste and your words.
It makes you wonder, if code is cheap and UI is generated on the fly, the most valuable design skill of the 2030s might actually just be really, really good copywriting.
If you're out there building the experiential web, keep your product sense sharp. Vocal Technologists, see you soon.
Spoken Tech for your ears.